Over to you, Dr. Mohsen.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are joining us from. Welcome to the 10th Nexus Policy webinar under the CGIAR Policy Innovation Science Program's area of work for on water, energy, food, and environment nexus. I am Dr. Mohsen Hafiz, Strategic Program Director, Water, Food, and Ecosystem at the International Water Management Institute, and I'm also the lead of the CGIAR, the Policy Innovation Area of Work 4. This is a landmark webinar in our series, the first dedicated to the intersection of gender equality and social inclusion within the water, energy, food, environment nexus. And today we are focusing on a powerful insight from Nepal. Let me begin with the scenario that captures the heart of what we will discuss today. Imagine that a hydropower plant, an industrial farm, and a small agriculture community are relying on the same water sources. If that water becomes scarce, who decide what's most important? Will the need of the vulnerable community members, the wage workers, the women, the landless be represented at the negotiating table? Or will stakeholders with the most economic and political influence leverage their power to secure the water rights for themselves? This scenario is not a hypothetical. Across the world, and particularly in the countries like Nepal, we see persistent gender inequalities in access to the resources and in decision about how to manage them. Rural women and men rely on the land and natural sources for their livelihood, yet patriarchal norms too often give more status, influence, and right to the men. Women are frequently left out of the development and environmental initiatives because they are not seen as a legitimate stakeholder, even though they possess a unique knowledge of and priorities for WEFE resources management. It is also equally important to recognize that many categories of men also experience marginalization, ethnic minorities, lower caste, landless men who struggle to have their voices heard in governance space that shape their local opportunities and resource access in significant ways. Advancing GESI in a WEFE Nexus is about recognizing and including all marginalized stakeholders in decision making and benefit sharing. The CGIAR initiative on Nexus Gain launched a pioneering WEFE Nexus leadership program in Nepal in 2022 in collaboration with the Alliance for Biodiversity, Great International, and Governance Lab. The program trained 22 mid-career professionals, including 17 women over 6 months, building a cadre of WEFI champions who are now actively driving across sectoral changes as a part of that one. Today, we hear from the two distinguished speakers about two complementary dimensions, strengthening leadership capacities, particularly of women professionals, and localizing GESI-responsive WEFE approaches at the municipal and watershed level. Allow me to introduce our eminent speakers. Our first presenter is Dr. Sanju Koirala. She is a researcher working on social sciences, water, and natural sources at IMI Nepal office. She will speak on strengthening leadership, capacities of women professionals for advancing the WEFE Nexus in Nepal. Our second presenter is Dr. Bharat Pokhral, and I will introduce him. He will be later on. But now let me work it as a part of that one, giving a floor to Dr. Sanjay Koirala, so that if you could give an overview about her presentation. Sanjay Koirala, you have 10 minutes for the presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Sanju, if you can unmute yourself, we can see your presentation.
Dr. Sanjay, still you are not, still you are muted, please. Unmute yourself and share the screen because now we can't see the screen, your presentation.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Please share the screen. We can't see your presentation.
Can you see it now?
Yes, please go in the presentation mode. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mohsen. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to present on strengthening leadership capacities of women professionals for advancing the WEFE Nexus approach in Nepal. Let me first begin with the background. Scoping study was conducted by IMI at federal level in 2022 and in the Mahakali River Basin Nepal side of Mahakali River Basin in 2023, which revealed that WEFE stakeholder had a limited understanding and capacity to implement the WEFE Nexus approach. The study also highlighted that women professionals and leaders face gender-specific barriers that limit their influence in decision-making process within their organization and working space. The respondent recommended a program that capacitates the woman professional on WEFE Nexus approach and leadership skills. In response, a tailored WEFE leadership development program for women professionals at the federal level was launched in 2023. Likewise, GESI-responsive WEFE Nexus workshops were conducted for local stakeholders in Rangoon watershed in 2024. Basically, two interventions were done. WEFE Leadership Development Program was implemented at federal level from 2023 to 2025, which was supported by CGIAR initiative on Nexus Gain and later by CGIAR Policy Innovation. 22 professionals, including 17 women professionals, participated in the program. They were basically from government, academia, NGOs, and private sector, especially working on WEFE sectors. The duration of the training program was 6 months. Later on, they were engaged as a community of practitioners in 2024. Likewise, GESI-responsive WEFE Nexus workshops were held at local level, basically in Rangoon watershed of Mahakali River Basin. The program was focused for 3 municipalities which were located in Rangoon watershed, and this program was supported by Oxfam under Transboundary Rivers of South Asia and partially by CGIAR Policy Innovation. In total, 33 participants participated, including 15 women. These participants were basically from local government unit, municipal offices, and Women Empowerment Center. The workshop was 3 days workshop, but which was followed by in-person follow-up in between 2024 and 2025. The training focused mostly on governance aspect of WEFE, since most of the participants were from government entities, and in addition to that, they were also given basic understanding on trade-off and synergies analysis. However, the technical aspect was not that much included. At federal level, the sessions were mostly focused on the WEFE Nexus approach, GESI within the WEFE Nexus approach, enabling environment for advancing transformational leadership and reaching national goals through a WEFE Nexus approach. Similar sessions were conducted at local level, but in addition to that, some session on social resource and stakeholder mapping of the Rangoon watershed area, Rangoon municipalities program and policies from WEFE lenses. There was a session on that as well. This session will be again presented by Dr. Bharat in his presentation later. Method applied was scoping study was conducted both at federal level and local level. Participation selection was mostly done like there was a committee to do that, especially in federal level, and mid-career professionals, especially from government, civil society, private, and academic sectors were selected. Likewise, in local level, participants were selected from local government. The local representatives were selected. Likewise, municipal staff and WEFE members were selected, and women were prioritized since there were not much women staff in municipality. We also had to bring some females member from Women Empowerment Committee. Likewise, adult learning approach were adopted in both the training given. In federal level, mentoring support was also provided. Participants were paired with mentors from various sectors throughout the program. But in local level, we didn't have mentoring support. However, follow-ups were conducted by IWMI Nepal team and some experts like Dr. Bharat to reflect on the challenges faced by them after the training, and to further give training as per their demand. Project works were given to the federal level participants. It was mostly that they had to organize whatever they had learned. They had to organize a sensitization workshops in their organization. So that was the task given to them. Likewise, at local level, project works were given, especially to analyze local level plans, budget, resource map, program diagrams from WEFE lenses. In federal level, community of practitioner was also formed. While at local level, it is not a form. We wanted to have a multi-stakeholder platform. However, it wasn't possible due to some political reason. Now, I would like to share a reflection from the participants. First, I would like to share the reflection from female participant working government of Nepal. She stated, "Now our mind is nexusized. I only look through a nexus lens. In meetings within organization and outside, we constantly advocate to other colleagues to look at the programs not only from a forestry lens, but also from nexus lenses. I was also one of the panelists at COP 28, where I got an opportunity to share about the WEFE Nexus approach. Likewise, WEF's member from Rangoon Watershed, who later became parliamentarian member, she stated, if the resources are not managed collaboratively, the consequences of the flood that occurs every year in the region may have massive destruction. Hence, intermunicipal collaboration is essential, and the WEFE Nexus approach appears to be a solution for managing natural resources." The impact seen post the training at national level was breaking the silos. Participants from different government departments invite each other to workshop, driving collaborative outcomes. After the workshop, they have expanded their networks, and they invite each other in their organizational meeting, and whenever they have to like design some programs and all, which is a good impact. Next generation of WEFE trainers has been developed. Post workshop, the participants, especially at federal level, they were asked to sensitize their colleagues. So they had, in total, they had trained around 120 participants. So we have also trained next generation of WEFE trainers. Likewise, leadership skills has improved. Their interpersonal and leadership, as well as networking skill among women professionals has increased. They have been advocating for WEFE Nexus approach in national and international conferences. At local level, we could see the policy integration. Annual plan and program of Parsuram municipality now emphasizes conservation of spring, river, wetlands, and ecosystem. It has also highlighted the importance of coordination in disaster management. So this is a major achievement for us. Likewise, Joral Rural Municipality has provided a formal letter confirming the incorporation of WEFE Nexus approach in their annual plan, this year annual plan. Likewise, GESI champion in Parliament, like one of the participants has become a member of Parliament. She was advocating, and she's still advocating for WEFE Nexus approach, and she had supported a lot during our field trips and while we were screening like videos and all. So yeah, we have now a ray of hope as well. Way forward, engage senior officials at the national level, extend training to senior policymakers and political leaders to strengthen policy and institutional change. especially in federal level, I think we have to extend the training even to senior officials. From the example of the local level, like we can see that like in local level, the training was given mostly to the deputy mayors and all. So it would result more significant impact. So the training at national level also should be given to senior officials. Likewise, shift the focus from individual capacity strengthening to organizational and institutional capacity building. That will also have a major impact. For instance, we can focus capacity strengthening of entire ministry, or like National Planning Commission. We can target capacity development program for them on WEFE Nexus approach. Likewise, support the community of practice to maintain networking, peer learning, and collective action. Now, since the program has ended, we haven't got opportunity to conduct such programs. Likewise, provide 1 to 2 years of technical support to strengthen capacities and pilot WEFE initiatives, especially in Rangoon watershed area. There is a huge demand from government, local government, to pilot some kind of WEFE Nexus initiatives. Expand critical mass. Our large network is needed to drive a systemic change and influence decision maker. Likewise, this program can be scaled out to other South Asian, Central Asian, and African countries. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Marlene Ilyas, Dr. Manohara Khatka, Dr. Marlene Bucci, great international team, governance lab team, and TROSA team for successfully conducting this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Koirala, for that insightful presentation. We have powerfully illustrated how the WEFE leadership program created not just trained professionals, but also genuine WEFE champions, and how 2022 scoping study revealed that women professionals face unique and then the other persistent barriers, and how this leadership has, this training has helped to development of the women leadership in cadre. Now, the next critical question is, how do we ensure that GESI responses Nexus thinking translate into practical tools for local governance? Nepal's federal structure with its 3 tiers of government present both challenge and opportunity for embedding WEFE-GESI approaches at the municipal and watershed level. With this one, I will be inviting my second presenter, Dr. Bharat Kumar Pokharel, who is the independent researcher and co-lead the author of the Gender Responsive WEFE Nexus Manual for Nepal, who will speak on the localization of GESI-responsive WEFE Nexus approaches in Nepal. And just another aspect is Dr. Pokharel has been the forefront of developing practical guidance, including the innovative Nepalese concept of 12 JA and 17 Sutra that make the WEFE Nexus accessible and actionable for local planners. Over to you, Dr. Bharat. You have 10 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. Sanjayji, could you please close your screen, please?
Okay, I have closed it, but
Now, if you could display your one, select on share.
No, it's not.
Sharon, could you please share, or Amjad Jamal? If anyone, you have a presentation, can you please share on screen?
Yeah, could you please display for me, please? I think it's not there, as I see. I can't see in the window.
Okay, so Sharon? Or Amjad?
Yes, Mohsin, I'm trying to show it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Sometimes, this technology, sometimes,
yes, technical glitches
does not cooperate.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Let me just start once Sharon will have my slides displayed. Good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. I am Bharat Pokhrel, as Dr. Ali actually introduced, a long-time learner of natural resource governance. As you see, my topic of my presentation is localization. My presentation, as Sanju actually indicated, should be able to offer you some thoughts on three key questions. Why GESI-responsive Nexus? Why localization? And what is needed to have this added value, particularly to achieve sustainable development goal? That Nexus is one of the potential areas, thematic areas that could contribute. So before diving into the topic, I would like to acknowledge, as Sanju, already indicated, the organizer, IMI team, and the TROSA team for their contribution. Though I have prepared this presentation, but the presentation is complementary to the earlier one. So therefore, maybe I will be skipping some of the slides, which are repetitive. So Sharon, I think it's not displayed yet. Shall I try?
My colleague is also trying to share it from that side. That's another colleague.
Because I can't see anything in my window, so I don't know whether it is because I have not properly registered or I don't know.
It's coming up.
It's coming. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Please put that in the other mode. Okay, presentation mode. Very good. You can go to the next slide. Let me briefly explain how this presentation look like in terms of flow. I'll begin with the concept and conceptual framework, which we have actually questioned and critically analyzed whether that fits into Nepali context. And the second explores more practical and locally grounded framework that we have been able to adapt, UN adapted framework, where the localization was possible. The third, localization for us was not simply translating terminology, but it was about transforming the complex concept into practical approach, which actually is customized in Nepalese context. And the fourth box that you could see, interestingly, the consultative process with local stakeholders, as Sanju actually described earlier, revealed that there is a natural linkage between Nexus and nearly 9 sustainable development goal related thematic areas. That was more interesting. Next slide, please. Sharon, may I have next slide, please? Okay. So what do we mean by localization? We mean by localization very simple. Planning, implementing, monitoring development action at the watershed or municipal level by applying Nexus principle while adapting them to local context. It involves learning from practice and continuously improving the approach. For this, Nepal provides a unique opportunity, as Dr. Ali said, for localization due to our federal structure, decentralized governance system, particularly local government, where we have 753 local government and more than 6,000 wards, which are actually basically the units for localization. These closest administrative units to communities, which are responsible for local planning and service delivery, and they get budget, they get autonomy, and they get the mandates for local processes. This is where our entry point was. The municipal representative expressed this interest in mainstreaming this approach, as Sanju actually highlighted, through training and research, process into their annual planning process, which includes like budget preparation, community consultation, ward level prioritization, program formulation, approval, and implementation. So therefore, it was very easy for us to localize this process. as Sanju highlighted, through leadership capacity building and collaboration with federal, provincial, and local government, we laid the foundation for localization process and gained practical experience from our municipalities in Rangoon watershed. That was our learning ground that attempted to integrate Nexus approach into their planning process. Next slide, please. But one of the challenges that we faced was the conventional Nexus framework, where you could actually see only water, energy, food ecosystem as resource, which is largely resource centric. However, the context of Nepal and the Nepalese power relation, the Nexus approach should be applied as a dynamic process and need to be understood and applied according to local context where resources are managed, and particularly the important cross-cutting dimension which we do not see in this conventional framework, including governance, socio-economic realities, gender equality, and social inclusion, dynamics, stakeholder engagement, and climate change. Therefore, next slide, please. Therefore, we had to go for a framework that would actually fit to our need. And what framework that we actually found out, next slide, please, is UNEP framework more appropriate for Nepal, because it actually places ecosystem, as you can see in the diagram, ecosystem health is the foundation, and recognizing that healthy ecosystems sustain water, energy, and food system. At the center, the policy and governance dimension also exist in this framework. The effective management of these WEFE resources depend more on institutions, coordination, accountability, decision-making, and inclusion. Therefore, for us, the governance-centric WEFE Nexus approach was more appropriate, and moreover, the climate change was recognized as a critical external factors influencing all these components of the Nexus system. Therefore, we were able to apply this framework, not the earlier one. Next slide, please. As you can see how we have been able to Nepalize this approach, in terms of what Dr. Ali actually mentioned, the localization, the 12 jaw. 12 jaw signifies is Nepali way of saying dozen. On the left, for example, in Nepalese term, there are, the earlier slide, please. There are 12 jaw, the familiar terminologies in Nepal, where a dozen of natural and human resources are coherently listed. And the governance particularly is the area where we could actually see our main focus, the governance. And this, the whole water resource, people's livelihood, climate, all these 12 jaw you can see where Nepalize in terms of 12 jaw. And this actually laid the foundation for us to go for localization process in terms of agenda. Next slide, please. And what are these local agendas that we were able to identify with the stakeholder? Once the stakeholder crafted Nepalese framework, the localization process became easier. Next slide, please. Stakeholder identified priority areas through the training and research process as indicated earlier, and which were summarized into 17 formulas that in Nepali we call it sutra. And what are these sutra? These sutras represented locally prioritized agenda for applying Nexus approach. Importantly, 9 of these agendas directly could be linked to Sustainable Development Goal, including zero hunger, gender equality, clean water, clean energy, climate action, life below water, life on land, strong institutions, and partnership. The Sutra 1, let me go to this one by one very briefly. Sutra 1 represents 12 joy itself to reiterate the interconnectedness of natural resources, human resources, and livelihood system. I think this is the strongest part where The WEFE signifies only resources, but we could integrate this human and livelihood dimension on it. Sutra second focused in our process, planning process and localization process on maximizing synergies and reducing trade-off among resources. While technical measurement for synergies was very challenging for stakeholders, they could not understand this trade-off and synergy calculation easily. Stakeholders, however, clearly understood the practical meaning of it. For example, balancing water use between agriculture and hydropower while promoting renewable energy for improved livelihood. Sutra 10 emphasized actually more important element of social power relation, where recognition, representation, redistribution of disadvantaged community have to be recognized. Sutra 4 similarly highlighted the sustainable resource management that required not only policies and institutions, but also behavioral change from sector-based thinking to collaborating thinking and mindset. And, the Sutra 5 placed gender equality and social inclusion as SDG goal 5. Similarly, Sutra 6 is more about integrated solution together with, energy. And Sutra 7 more about, Sutra 6 actually is about water. Sutra 7 about energy, and so on and so forth. And, next slide, please. So what was more important for us was, the Sutra 8, where, stakeholder identified the limitations of this conventional approach. And these, what this conventional approach, that they could identify isolated planning, sector-based thinking, often very exclusionary in terms of, involvement of NGOs and private sector, and institutional silos, weak collaboration, limited understanding of synergies and trade-off, and unsustainable practices, the short-term ad hoc planning, and insufficient attention to gender equality and social inclusion. And that was actually our entry point for localization. Sutra 9 actually focused on citizen rights. It's not only the government managed resource system, but communities were very powerful. Civil society was very powerful to take responsibility to manage different types of resource, and they could voice for benefit sharing. Sutra 10 identified key climate responsive sectors requiring integrated planning, where government of Nepal actually has identified 10 areas, including agriculture, food security, forest and biodiversity, watershed management, water resources, settlement, including settlement infrastructure, tourism, even health, drinking water, and so on. Let me elaborate this point a bit, because this was more important in terms of climate actions that provided an opportunity, the important entry point for us to actually apply Nexus approach for localization, because stakeholder could articulate, for example, water management through reservoirs, groundwater recharge, wetland, water harvesting, could strengthen the resilience against floods, droughts, was more important for forest, biodiversity, and agriculture. Sutra is one of the important institutional host for this Nexus approach. This platform has become very important to institutionalize the process. Sutra 12 actually introduced planning and monitoring tools, and stakeholders were able to design micro projects using logical framework, using Nexus approach as important areas for their checklist. Sutra 13 linked, very important one, linked with the Sutra 10 like climate, but it is not, and it was not enough, but it emphasized that climate responsive Nexus planning also need to address both environmental risks and human vulnerability. What we mean by human vulnerability is that there are 13 groups of people which have been recognized by Nepal Constitution as vulnerable group, where you could apply positive discrimination approach. So you could actually discriminate positively these people, which are like caste-based marginalized communities, economically disadvantaged people living in poverty, gender minorities, person with disabilities, sexual minorities like LGBTQI, geographically remote and hard to reach population, senior citizens, children underprivileged, unemployed youth, helpless person, orphan, landless and bonded laborers, poor single women, stateless individual who have no citizenship but they are still Nepalese, and more importantly, unemployed youth who are forced to leave country for jobs and foreign land. So these 13 groups of people actually were identified as the group where positive discrimination approach could be applied by local government, where they could also allocate fund and specific program. Sutra 14 actually was the core focus of the WEFE Nexus governance, where what we mean by this is that building conceptual clarity, as I mentioned in the first slide, second slide on the framework, and then integrating these ensuring inclusion marginal groups, as I said earlier, strengthening multi-stakeholder platform, improving coordination mechanism, addressing capacity and resource gap, developing monitoring and a learning system, harmonizing sectoral policies which are contradictory often, resolving conflict with conflict resolution mechanism, and more importantly, the digital sort of knowledge exchange platforms, strengthening leadership through different capacity building program, encouraging innovation and scaling, and promoting public-private community partnership. So these these are the major nexus governance element which we could identify, where local government is my previous presenter actually mentioned how we have started that process. Next slide, please. And what was more important? What was more interesting for us?
If you
yes,
could have
please.
finished it in 2 minutes time, because we are running behind on this. Thank you.
Okay. So these three agendas where we could also identify how these nexus approach could be linked naturally with climate agendas, where because of the time limitations, I want to show you how the linkage was looked at the nexus and climate change. Can I have the slide with this diagram, please? Next slide. Next, please. This one. I mean, this slide particularly is more interesting, where we could actually demonstrate how nexus approach is more important than only resource-centric management. You have WEFE resources in the one hand. In the one hand, the other one, you have to achieve STC goal, bigger goal like gender equality, eliminate poverty, reduce inequality, and health and well-being. And you have different other programs like climate and governance. But without looking at those lines, the linkages, I think you could not achieve those bigger, higher level goals. So therefore, people could really articulate and realize that the added value of nexus approach. And if you just click the button here, then you could see WEFE resources with detailed sort of linkage within resources. For example, water, agriculture, energy, and ecosystem. Then only you could achieve this STC goal. So in conclusion, what I could say is that while efforts have been made to adapt and mainstream WEFE Nexus approach at the local level, several challenges remain. These include still fragmented sectoral policies and mindset, top-down guidelines from federal government, institutional silos still exist, weak coordinated attempt by some of the officials, limited data to be shared, and insufficient local examples, best example of practical implementation. To conclude, the main lesson learned that we have from this whole localization process is that the localization process is the role of is not the role of expert and scientific community to realize. Their role is to facilitate, support, and provide evidence-based guidance. The decision-making role should be in the hand of local stakeholders and the community who really want to take whatever way process forward. I think this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your interest and kind attention. We really enjoyed working in this approach, how climate and others could be entry point for promoting Nexus approach in Nepal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for a very impressive presentation, Dr. Pokhral, and demonstrating how the global concept can be adopted to the local governance and giving the example of 12 JA and 17 Sutra in the context of Nepal. Now, let me move to the next of that one. We are moving to the next segment, where we are privileged to have two distinguished discussants, Dr. Ali Karneb, bringing perspective from the MENA region, and Dr. Ojong Inkoenwa from MENA, South Africa, who will reflect how Nepal Insight connect to the challenges and opportunity in the respective region. Before we start for the discussion, so each of the discussion will have a 5 minute to provide overview, but I will be requesting if anyone has any questions or the thing you want to ask from Dr. Bharat or from Dr. Sanju, please write your question. And I will be requesting Dr. Bharat and Sanju just try to provide a response. If not, we'll be picking up the things later on. Over to you first, starting with Dr. Ali Karneb. You have 5 minutes, please. Provide your overview, perspective.
Thank you very much. And also, I would like to thank you, the organizers, for convening this important workshop, and also the previous presenters for setting a very rich and practical foundation for this discussion. So I will build on the interesting presentations that we have just heard by offering a short reflection from the Arab region. So what I appreciated in the Nepal experience is that it did not actually treat the WEFE Nexus only as a technical framework. This is a very important point. It treated it as a governance and localized challenge. And this is very true, actually. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm a professor at the Lebanese American University. I am also a researcher and providing lots of modeling on the WEFE Nexus, including quantitative modeling, qualitative, and so on. And I have also developed the Q-Nexus model. It's a platform that can bring all the resources together and work together on the platform to make like simulations and quantitative analysis. So back to the Nepal experience, they really actually treated, as I said, the WEFE Nexus also as a governance and localized challenge. And as I said, that this is very true. But I would add, let me add something, that we should also look into the question that not only how WEFE systems are connected, but we have to look into the deeper questions behind who decides, who benefits, who have the voice, and maybe who carries the burden. And here we can see the governance side of all these questions. Okay, so my actually reflection on this, that GESI should not be an additional like social component, as it was mentioned by the presenters. It should be, or maybe social component that should be added maybe after the technical design is finished. I think it should be part of the design itself. And I will explain why. I will explain in the examples that I will provide why this is important. Because this is the gap, actually. Without understanding the power, the access, maybe the burden, it's difficult to make a very technical design or assessment or analysis. Let me go to the Arab region just to give you some insights. As you know, the Arab region is very particular context because it's shaped by severe water scarcity and also centralized institutions. We have also food import dependency. We have the climate change that impact all the sectors, all the systems. We can add lots of things, but mainly I should add also conflict. And conflict, now we have several refugee hosting settings in many Arab countries. So it's a very particular context. So here, the GESI-responsive WEFE Nexus, it's very critical in such a context. And back to the localized, yes, we should not actually copy any model. We should build our localized model, and this is very true. Let me go to practical terms. Like for example, give you some examples. In the Arab region, since it's water scarcity, many implementation, WEFE Nexus implementation, like for example, irrigation modernization using drip irrigation, solar energy system in the irrigation systems. All these are a very technical Nexus projects that provide win-win across all the systems, even the ecosystem. Okay, so they are win-win solutions. But now back to the GESI WEFE questions. So how can access who can access the subsidy in such a system? Who owns the land? Are women farmers and smallholders included? So another question: if solar pumping reduces energy costs, which actually did, who prevents groundwater from over extraction, for example? If crop choices has changed based on the drip irrigation and solar energy supply, who controls the income and who carries the risk of this change? So all these questions should be at the head of the design, not after the implementation. Another popular option in the Arab region, because of water scarcity also, is the wastewater reuse. And we have many around the Arab countries projects around this topic. But technically, it's an attractive as in water scarce country. But socially, let's look into the social part. It raises question of trust, health protection, farmer acceptance to irrigate wastewater, land access. So as you can see, and also the benefit, the equitable benefit of sharing between farmers. So if these questions are addressed only after infrastructure is built, then I think, in my opinion, we are already too late. Okay. So I will close with 3 messages. First, the WEFE Nexus in the Arab region must be localized, and I agree on that. We can learn from Nepal, but we should not copy Nepal because of the many natural and socio-economical conditions that I mentioned before. Second, GESI must move from participation to power. This is very important. The issue is not only who attends meeting, who attends the workshops, who can ask questions in the workshops and interact. We have to move who can influence water allocation. Okay, the influence is very important. And third, we need to move from projects to institutions. Here's the governance gap that exists everywhere, and very, very important in the Arab region. The real test is whether GESI-responsive WEFE practice becomes part of a municipal plans, for example, of adaptation plans, of national adaptation plans, ministry coordination, and so on. So this concludes my talk. But before leaving you, I just want to share one slide. Let me go to my sharing. I hope that I can share from here. Yes. So I would like to share this for you, just to conclude and say, I hope you can see my slide.
Yes, we can see.
Yes, what we are used to do is here, making all this interconnection between the resources. We are forgetting the second layer, which is the socioeconomic and GESI's layer. And the challenge is how to connect these together. From the first beginning, from the design. And I invite researchers and maybe decision makers to start thinking about this, because frankly, there is no solution for that for now. I don't know if you have any other solution for that, but technically speaking, this challenge is not solved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Kanab, and I really like the idea that we should move from participation to the actions on the ground and how they could contribute in the decision making, especially the women and marginalized group. Now let's move on to our next discussion, Dr. Jong Inkoena. She is working as a researcher within the International Water Management Institute. And over to you, Dr. Okong, for giving a perspective from the South African side. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Marcin. And just listening to the earlier speakers, I think they've really grounded the conversation for today around GESI responsiveness within the WEFE Nexus. So a reflection from me listening to our two speakers from Nepal, what we are seeing is that, or what we are getting is that the bottom line is that localization is key, right? But the question still remains, how do we want this to translate into very practical and locally driven terms, right? We want governance systems to speak the reflexive or gender responsive language. And the question remains how. And I think the speakers have shown us in the context of Nepal what they have been doing and how they've been trying to bring or centralize issues around representation, ensuring there's recognition at different levels, like you saw on the presentation, but also equity lens around redistribution of resources. So from us, from Southern Africa, the perspective we have really is that, and I think it's the same perspective we see from the Nepal region or Nepal country or Asian region, is that GESI remains a critical layer, you know, for the WEFE Nexus. And for us, what we've been doing is to try to unpack GESI, not just from a position of technical standpoint, but also how does governance play a critical role in this process? So we've tried to work with nested departments or across different departments to ensure that the Nexus concept, you know, bringing in GESI within that concept or framing needs to start from the design right through to policy. And I'll give a few examples. When we work in Malawi, for example, and Zambia, where we have issues around human-wildlife conflict, those are issues that within the Nexus, we often don't bring to the core, right? We have issues around water, but is water only a critical factor for humans? We also have conflicts around humans, you know, dealing with water-related conflicts with animals. And so within the Nexus, how are we positioning policies and strategies to address some of those conflicts, and where does GESI, you know, sit in this picture? So from a perspective, we try to ensure that leadership or the position of women within different contexts, whether from local to district to national, need to address the challenges that they face. What we've tried to do hands-on is developing from the onset of a project or a program within countries. We've tried to develop or design GESI approaches with the ministries, for example. In Malawi, where we have a project or a program on water and soil accelerator, so building innovations around water and soil sustainability, what we've done is approaching government departments to start a perspective where they understand strategies need to be designed upfront. And I think Dr. Ali spoke a lot about that. We do not need a Nexus framework to be designed, and then we ask ourselves, where does GESI fit in this picture? However, we need to take the other approach, where we start working through a co-design process with different core actors to say, where do you see GESI fit in this picture? How do we address barriers around equity? How do we address barriers around redistribution of resources? And so in our context for Malawi, what we did was to approach the ministries with very tailored GESI approach, what we call the gender action learning system. And so for us, it created a safe space for ministries, but also local organizations and traditional leaders, together with natural resource management committees who are in charge of grazing or natural resource and grazing, especially for cattle, where livestock and human conflicts are existing, to come to the table and say, a safe space like this should allow us answer questions around whose voice is limited when it comes to natural resource management, but also who has the ability to benefit from the income, that comes through from some of those resources. What we've also done is taking that from a low level with households and communities, and now we've tried to formulate policies. There are already existing government strategies, and they have been able to say, look, having moved the girls from a local level or a household perspective and community level, we are also interested at the institutional level, to ensure that these strategies speaks to our national strategies and district strategies. And so that's the kind of approach we've tried to take, where a co-design approach guides or informs a GESI perspective to become more responsive, not just at the household level, but right through to the national level. In terms of women's leadership, we've used other approaches like the gender action, like the gender up approach. This is really around responsible scaling. So in cases where the WEFE Nexus is being scaled, innovations are being scaled, we need to ask ourselves, are there marginalized groups that are being left behind? Are there unintended consequences that the scaling of our innovations, which sometimes sits within the WEFE Nexus, could create potential conflict or damage to certain groups of people? And for those questions, or for such questions to be answered, we use the gender up as a tool where we engage policymakers, we engage institutions, we engage scaling actors to ask the right questions. Is your governance system addressing a no-harm approach? Is your governance systems creating an ecosystem that allow inclusivity, allow ethics, allow mitigating risk, but also allow us to think beyond women and men as a category, to really exploring who are the marginalized social categories that we find in our communities, but also within the ecosystem that those innovations need to be scaled. And so we've used those approaches to work from the onset or inception of the thinking or ideation of an innovation right through to when an innovation is being piloted and when it's been validated for scaling. Those are two main approaches I wanted to highlight to say the WEFE Nexus actually has a lot to still be done when it comes to having gender responsive, but also inclusive perspective. But again, I don't think we are at a position where nothing is being done, which is really good. A lot is being done, and we hope more can be done, where approaches cannot just be seen at a generic level. And Dr. Ali really spoke a lot around that. We need to tailor these approaches to speak to the realities of context, but also the realities of those social groups that we have across different contexts. So what I'll end with is really to highlight that Nexus approaches cannot continue to remain very centric, and I think two speakers really spoke around that. But for them to become more responsive, we need to think about how our co-design processes for innovation development, but also how our development plans, our finance plans, and also our governance mechanisms more broadly address risk of exclusion to specific groups of people. That way, our experiences or our approaches around the WEFE Nexus system will become more inclusive and responsive. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jung. I'm giving the perspective of South Africa and giving some real-world example of how natural resources management are being managed in Malawi and how we could bring the WEFE Nexus approach. I'm looking also at the time. We are 3 minutes over, but there was some technical glitch. We'll run it for next 7 minutes. In order to move forward, I will be just saying, quickly requesting Dr. Sanju, if you have any response, quick response back to that one, the two discussant, you have a maximum 1 minute. And then the same I will be saying to Dr. Bharat, if you have some response against the discussion point, the point which they have highlighted, you will be coming second. Over to you, Dr. Sanju, if you have any quick response on the point raised by the discussant.
I totally agree with the discussant, as they have mentioned that GESI responsive approaches should be considered from the design of the project. I also agree to that, and that was also our focus. And we also had also included this equity framework where 3R representation, redistribution, and another I just forgot now. But we also had included those aspects in our training. So I totally agree to what our discussant has said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Bharat, for a quick
I think-
response.
Thank you very much. I think these are great points. I like how Dr. Ali actually summarized, particularly, the localized approach is good, but not show much that we should copy each and every learning, that it is context specific. Participation to power, of course. I think land tenure rights is the issue. Therefore, I think participation to power and rights, rights over tenure rights, very important. Good point. Projects to institutions, I think great point. I think that we have noted. And the Dr. Ojong, I think you have also highlighted and raised very important point of scaling up barriers of redistribution, no harm approach. I think these are great points which we have noted it down, and I think these are quite relevant to Nepalese context also. Because of time constraint, I think we could not go into this detail, what sort of tenure rights issue that we have, how this benefit, this redistribution system, that what are the constraint on those issues. But great points. Thank you very much. I really like it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bharat. Just there is a one question for you. If you could provide a response of that one, that's about that. The question is about the nexus concept in relation to the conflicts between agriculture and hydropower sector. During the dry summer season, hydropower projects sometimes struggle to maintain even the minimum environmental flow requirement of 10%, while downstream agriculture water demand is at its peak. The question the Praveen is asking is, what should be our approach? How can such a conflict be effectively managed to ensure a balance between energy production, agriculture needs, and environmental sustainability in the context of Nepal? You have 1 minute to provide a very long question.
This is a $1 million question anyway, but as you know that there are bigger stakeholders who are in favor of hydropower, including government, federal government, and the victim that farmers have become in downstream side, which is a big problem in Nepal. As you know, Nepal is very fragile in terms of Gulf also, because we have glacier lakes coming from Tibet. And that is the additional burden that farmers are really being suffered during the monsoon time. And this the choice between hydropower and agriculture is a very tricky issue. I think the approach that we should take is, of course, a farmer centric approach, where I think they should be farmers should be compensated, and maybe the more calculation, more research needed on trade-off and synergy, so that we could actually demonstrate how hydropower projects could be more beneficial or not beneficial in the context of farming system. I think the more research is needed, particularly on trade-off and synergy.
Thank you so much.
This is what I think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatt. Yes, it's not $1 million, but it's a $10 million question. That's where we need to address it. Thank you. Just last thing is, Dr. Ali, there is a question which I will say, based on your experience, if you could provide a response. That's from the Marvin. Marvin is talking about the AI used for water extraction, used for cooling data centers for AI technology now. And the question is that one, in our aim to anchor AI technology in water sources management, but it seems we do not gain sustainability towards water conservation because of the high water uptake demand for those data centers. What is your opinion?
Sorry, the question is for me?
Yes, I mean, the question is for you or for me. I'm just
Yes,
saying
yes.
if somebody is asked, I want to utilize from your expertise.
This is very important questions, and I actually congratulate who asked it. It's very important because now it's an issue. The AI centers and cooling centers is added to this massive challenges for water. And frankly speaking, we are not looking deeply in that for the moment, but we should do. Thank you for these important questions. And I agree on the Sonji perspective of the trade-offs and synergies that can solve many problems in the conflict between sectors.
Yep, thank you. Just thanks, Dr. Ali. Just a brief response from me on the question of AI. I think that when we need to take the water system approach, if we are using the water data, I mean that when the water for AI data cooling center, we also need to think about how we could augment the water through rainwater harvesting, through manage aquifer recharge and everything, looking on the system level approach, we are able to bring that kind of balance. And that's where I mean, there are many institutes who are working it. So like MIT is working on that kind of concept where we are also supporting them a part of that one. So again, that's a water system approach will be the quite relevant to tackling and those kind of challenge. And also we need to think about how we could promote the water conservation technologies for the broader use of the water which is happening in agriculture. With this one, I will be saying, let me conclude for this session. Basically, thank you to our presenter, discussant, and to all in the audience for the rich and thoughtful, provoking discussion. There are two key messages for me. One is GESI is not add-on. It is central to the WEFE Nexus. We should not be thinking about once anything happened, once we plan that one, but we need to think from a beginning how when we are talking about any water sources or any natural sources project, how we'll make sure that we are considering those one as a part of core design principles. Second is about we need to think about from a resource-centric to the people-centric approaches. And that's where, again, how we could bring the GESI as a part of that one. How, when we are talking about optimizing of resource energy, resource efficiency, and other things, so how we could bring that one, social, economic, and political factors across that one. With this one, I'm thankful to everyone, and thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll come back again for the next month about the next webinar. Until then, stay engaged. Thank you so much. Good evening and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.